Good evening and welcome to this special edition of 2 News. I'm Mary Nickles. Her story captivated the nation, and many people remember where they were when they heard the great news that she was found. 20 years ago, Elizabeth Smart was rescued after 9 long months in captivity. Well, tonight we sit down with her to talk about this anniversary, her advocacy work, and her family. First, let's take a look back at the events that brought us to this day. June 5th, 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth is taken by knife point from her bedroom around 2 a.m. and led to the foothills above Salt Lake City. Her 9-year-old sister, Mary Catherine, alerts her parents hours later, and the search for Elizabeth begins.
About 4.5 to 5 feet apart from each other.
The next day, scores of volunteers show up to scour the area looking for Elizabeth. Police announce a $250,000 cash reward for her safe return.
Or one single fingerprint that will make or break the case.
In coming days and weeks, police follow hundreds of leads, announcing some persons of interest and suspects.
Our family feels strongly that she is alive.
All the while, Elizabeth's family holds out hope Elizabeth is still alive and plead with her kidnapper to let her go.
I would just appreciate it if you have got her to please let her go. Please.
In the fall, pictures are taken at a party showing 3 people in veils, but no one realized it was Elizabeth and her captors until later. That was before her kidnappers took her to San Diego and stayed in the area for months. Around that same time, a break in the case. Mary Catherine told her parents she thinks a man named Emmanuel, a homeless man who had once done work at their home, may have been the one who took Elizabeth.
He's one of several dozen people.
But it's not until February when he publicly gets a face in a police sketch and a name, Brian David Mitchell. Mitchell, his wife Wanda Barzee, and Elizabeth then returned to Utah. And soon after, the day the Smart family was waiting for.
We're here to announce officially that we have found Elizabeth Smart.
On March 12th, 2003, after 9 long months, Elizabeth Smart is spotted on the streets of Sandy.
Oh, they were right about here, and they were just walking, and they stopped right at the bus stop.
Brian David Mitchell and Wanda Barzee are arrested, and Elizabeth is finally reunited with her family.
God bless everyone. Thank you for your prayers and your support and your help. I'm so happy. Thank you very much.
20 years since you were reunited with your family. How did you get here so gracefully?
I don't know if it's been gracefully, but I mean, I would say it is a miracle because I definitely remember a time when I couldn't imagine ever being able to say 20 years or even 10 years for that matter just seemed, I don't know, too huge for my little mind to comprehend. I mean, it just seemed that everything that I'd been through, it was so horrific and shocking that trying to look into the future felt incredibly intimidating and impossible. So gracefully, maybe not, but miraculously and very thankfully.
Appeared gracefully, I guess,
well,
to
that's
many
good.
of us. Right at the beginning, you have such a nice, tight-knit family. How did they help you take those baby steps to recovery?
My family, they were, I mean, it's what I had held on to for 9 months. I mean, they were the reason why I survived, was believing that they'd still love me, that they'd still want me back, that they'd still be there for me. And so coming home and being able to be with them was, I mean, it was everything I prayed for.
It had to be intensive therapy to help you and your family through all of this.
I believe in therapy. I am a strong advocate and supporter of therapy, but when I was young, when I first returned, I didn't really understand what it was. In my mind, I had a very wrong idea of what it was, but in my mind, it was going into a room full of shelves filled with books, with an old man sitting at his desk with like glasses perched on the end of his nose, and then me lying on like a leather settee. And I remember thinking, no, that's not, why would that help me? He couldn't possibly understand what I went through. He wasn't there. Like, what gives him like the right to tell me what's going to help me now when he wasn't there? He doesn't know what it was like. So I had a very misguided idea of what therapy was. So although my parents were very supportive and they're like, Elizabeth, let's go to therapy, or let's go to this, let's go to that, I just didn't understand what it was. So I said that I did not want to go. I didn't want to talk about it with anyone. I didn't want to see a therapist. I didn't want to talk to someone who could pretend or thought that they could relate to me when I didn't feel like anyone could. So I did not go the traditional path. That being said, I look back at myself now, having a much better understanding of what therapy is now. And do I think that it could have helped? Yeah, I think it could have. Do I think it could have made a difference for me? Yeah, I think it could have. But I didn't know that then, and it's in the past, so I can't go back and redo it. But I do think there are so many wonderful, disciplines of therapy, and I strongly support and advocate for anyone who needs that extra help in their life. There's nothing shameful or embarrassing about going to it. I mean, personally, I think it's a very evident sign of strength, because therapy is hard. I mean, as an adult, as I have experienced therapy now, and as I've spoken with other survivors, every one of my acquaintance that has been and has taken it seriously has always said those mental workouts are much harder than any kind of workout you could get in the gym.
Well, it seems like you kind of created your own therapy then. I've heard it described as anybody who goes through trauma kind of kicks into a survival mode. I know when I went through cancer treatment, it was get up and go to work, and I didn't want anybody to worry about me. And you didn't realize that I was really scared until years later. But every trauma is a little bit different, and every treatment's a little bit different. Did you have your own kind of therapy? Just playing the harp?
Yes. So, I mean, my parents, because they were so worried about me when I said no, they went to therapy. And I think their therapist said, you know what, ultimately it's okay. Like, let her make this choice. You're going to be her biggest therapist anyway, so you need to make sure you're both in a healthy enough place that you can actually be there for her. So I'm also a huge proponent of self-care. But so my parents were they were huge in my healing and supporting me and helping me work through whatever I was feeling at the time. Playing the harp, yeah, it has been a big part of my life. Things that I didn't feel like I could articulate in words, I felt like I could express through music. Being outside, I love being outside. My grandpa, he used to take me up horseback riding in the mountains, and I think that was my most favorite thing.
An organic therapy.
Before and after my kidnapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are your parents now?
They're both doing well in their separate lives.
Did helping you help them a little bit?
I honestly couldn't say.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I mean, I would say that I was fairly self-aware, but at the same time, I mean, my parents had always been my parents, and in my mind, like, that was always their responsibility. So me taking into consideration what they might possibly be going through at that point in time, it didn't enter. I still saw it as, well, you still had the whole family, and I'm back now, so like, your happiness should be complete.
It's all better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all better. I mean, it was very one-sided, but now, as an adult myself and having kids myself, becoming a mother myself, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I don't even know how they did it.
As a parent, how do you relate to them now? Can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine. I mean, it makes me want to throw up when I think about it too much. I can't imagine. I hope I never have to learn what it was like for them, because I can't stand it. I can't stand that thought.
At what point did you realize that turning something so horrible into something positive would help you? Was that a little therapeutic?
I don't know if it was honestly a conscious decision that was ever made. My dad always emphasized the importance of service. And if you, hopefully, when you die, you leave the world a better place than when you found it. The world was better for having you be a part of it than not. And I feel like that was always kind of my family's mentality. And so my dad, he was always trying to advocate. I mean, from the day that I got home, it wasn't just like a celebration of me coming home, but then his focus was, on getting the Amber Alert passed through and raising awareness for other missing children and being involved in different search efforts and helping to shed light on cases that didn't have attention or notoriety at all. And I feel like little by little he pulled me in, and he'd ask me that makes it sound like I was coerced. He did not. I would say I was intrigued in. He'd ask me things like, what do you think of this? Do you think this would have made a difference in your case? Do you feel like this, if you had known this, would this made a difference to you? And it was kind of those questions along the way, or being like, what do you think of this? Or me asking him, where are you going? Him being like, I'm going to Capitol Hill. I'm going to go talk about this today. And being like, I want to come. That kind of naturally led me into this path. And now...
Intrigued was a good word.
Yeah, now I don't feel like I could, like in my heart of hearts, I don't feel like I could go down any other path. I mean, I have many interests and I have many hobbies, but I think whenever an issue would come up, or if I knew something, I would always feel like I was hiding from what I was supposed to be doing.
Elizabeth continues on that path of advocating for others, education, even expanding into prevention. Coming up next, we talk about this passion, what she's doing to keep children safe, and her message to others who may have been through traumatic events as well. Welcome back. In the 20 years since Elizabeth Smart was found and reunited with her family, she has shown she's more than a victim. She's a survivor, a fighter, and a fierce safety advocate, working to turn her experiences into something positive for many others.
In 2011, my dad and we started the Elizabeth Smart Foundation, and we were much more of a passive organization. We kind of did things a little bit more behind the scenes, and then the pandemic hit, and I felt like we needed to be doing so much more than what we were doing. And actually in 2022, last year, just over a year ago, one of the most exciting things that happened was that we joined forces with the Maloof Foundation. And that has just been incredible, because all of a sudden, there's so much more manpower and energy and I want to say force behind each of our initiatives, which has been really great. And, a lot of the questions that I get asked when I go out and speak are things like, how can I help? What can I do? And actually, some of our resources are great ways that you can help. Taking these resources, doing these resources will be a great way to help. The first one is called IamOnWatch.org. It is learning how to recognize the signs of human trafficking, what to do. And this is not just good for specifically human trafficking, but just recognizing red flags in general, and being aware of what's around you. I mean, it's completely free. You just go online and take it and get educated. That's what I'm asking you to do. The other thing that is also really amazing is our other app. It's called Raise, but it's also a tool to help you communicate better with your kids. There has been such a, I want to say it's 98% increase of online victimization since the pandemic. I mean, that is so much.
Kids are being taken advantage of.
It's horrific. And honestly, when I first started speaking and people would be like, oh, well, what can I do? It was kind of easy to be like, well, don't let computers be in private bedrooms, keep them out in the main area, make sure you're just in the area when people are on them. Can't say that. Everyone has a tiny computer in their hand that their life is connected to. So the best thing you can do is communicate with them. And this Raise app, what it does is it helps you create opportunities to have those conversations, educates you so you are able to address topics of, sexual victimization, online predatory behavior, even things like cyberbullying, even things that are not necessarily immediately connected to sexual exploitation, but still things that are very important for parents to have conversations about with their kids.
And
so,
tips on how to talk to your
and
kids
how
about
to talk, because I mean,
even younger
people
ones.
ask me like all the time, and I'm like, I've only been a parent for 8 years. Like, you think I'm an expert in this already? Like, please, like, you have 26-year-old twins. Like, please, you tell me what comes next.
But you have professionals who help walk through
But
it.
yes,
Yeah.
so there are both these apps were developed, not by me personally. It might be a bit messy if it was just up to me. No, there were professionals and experts.
Like you said, the manpower
Yes, the
surrounding
manpower.
this has been great.
Exactly, it's been incredible.
And then the smart defense
And
as well.
smart defense, yeah. I was on a plane a few years ago and I fell asleep, and a man reached across and was like rubbing the inside of my leg, and I was so shocked I just froze, which I would like to say is a natural response. I mean, fight, flight, freeze, and appease, and I froze. And when I got off the plane, I just remember thinking, this is not okay. If this is happening to me up in like business class, in the middle of the day, it wasn't even a night flight, in the middle of the day, like, what else is happening to other people everywhere else? And this is not okay. Like maybe we need to become a bit more vocal, and maybe we need to become a bit more physical. I mean, if my daughter ever gets in trouble for defending herself, I mean, for fighting someone, and I find out it's because she was defending herself, like, we're celebrating. Yeah. We're going to go to Hawaii for that, because I would rather be called down to the principal's office, but know that she protected herself, than have something, unchangeable happen, irreversible happen.
Like what happened to you.
Like what happened to me.
What's the main thing you hope people come away with?
I hope that, as cliche as these sound, I hope that survivors, that everyone, because not everyone's story is the same, but everyone does have a story. I mean, you have a story, I have a story. I hope people really do realize that they are special, that they are unique, they have something wonderful to offer the world that nobody else does. I hope they recognize that circumstance or other people cannot take away their value. It doesn't matter what's happened to them, that doesn't lessen their worth in any way. And I hope that they recognize that, yes, this terrible thing has happened. It's very easy to feel defined by that, but ultimately you get to decide who you are, and you get to decide if you like the person who you are, or if you're proud of the person who you are, by the decisions that you make going forward. You get to decide who you are.
Well, another job title for Elizabeth is mom, of course. And up next, we talked about what she tells her kids about what happened to her and what she worries about. Learn more about her family and her hopes for the future. Stick around. Welcome back. Years ago, Elizabeth's mom, Lois, told her that Brian David Mitchell took 9 months of her life away, and to not dwell on that, to not let what happened take up any more of her time, or he succeeds in stealing more of her life. Well, Elizabeth listened to her mother's advice, and now she's a mom herself, which she says is really a dream come true. We talked about how she deals with telling her children about what happened to her. What do your kids know?
So my older two, my oldest, she could tell you like the rough, very rough outline of the story. She couldn't go into details or anything. I don't think she's quite age appropriate, and she's very sensitive. And I think it's good to answer questions when they are asked, but I also think it's good to not just dump and unload on them more than they're ready to handle or process. So,
I mean, every parent has a fear. You lived it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be too dramatic or create a bigger fear than is real.
Yeah. And I mean, she's 8. I don't think she's ready to hear details about being raped. So she could tell you, like, vaguely what happened. My little boy, he doesn't care that much, to be honest. Yeah, that doesn't interest him in quite the same way it does my older daughter, and my youngest. I mean, She's just the boss anyway, so
And she's how old?
she just tells everyone else what to do. She's 4.
4. Okay, and she's the boss.
She's the boss, yeah.
I think people really want to know if you're really okay.
Yes. I mean, I do laundry and cook dinner and potty train my kids the same way as everyone else has. And I'm great.
But to have been through so much that is unimaginable for most of us.
Being a kid, honestly, like my dream was to grow up and be a mom. That's what I wanted. That's what my sister and I, we played dolls, we played dress ups, and it was always, growing up and having kids and having a family. And my life is absolutely different than what I imagined it, but it's also so much better because not only do I have the joy and happiness of having a wonderful family myself and being able to be married and have someone that I care about so deeply and have all of these things that I dreamed of having, but I also get to do something every day that I know makes an impact and makes a difference and hopefully educates people so that maybe someday, hopefully before I die, we can see the statistics start to change and we can see the culture take a bigger shift and we can see real change happen.
Real change happen. Now, we will be posting some links for her foundation, the Maloof Foundation, as well as resources she mentioned. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining me.